I'd like to talk about the coronavirus from the point of view of depth psychology, especially Jungian psychology, because the experience of the coronavirus is an experience of what Jung calls the dark side of the self, where the word self is written with a capital letter S, meaning the transpersonal self. Jung thinks that the self, with a capital S, is an innate image of the divine in the psyche. He calls it the God within. Because many people associate the idea of God with love and light rather than with suffering and evil, it might be very surprising to hear that we can think of God as having a dark side. However, Jung thought that widespread suffering and evil and events like this pandemic or other historical events like the Holocaust cannot be attributed to human beings alone. The enormity of the suffering caused by these kind of events make them more than human. And to do justice to the level of destruction and chaos that these events produce, Jung thought we have to acknowledge that our image of God has to have a dark side to it. This means that suffering and evil are part of the substance of creation. They're not simply due to human error. Given the unfathomable level of suffering in the world, we can no longer pretend that the divine is only sweetness and light. Now, why do I suggest that this pandemic is related to the transpersonal self? Well, the coronavirus is shaped in the form of a sphere, which is a type of mandala. Mandalas are one of the important ways in which the self expresses itself symbolically. Mandalas are highly symmetrical diagrams. They are often seen in Eastern religious traditions where they are used as objects of meditation and veneration. They are images of wholeness and completion, and the self often expresses itself in this way in the form of mandala imagery like spheres. If we look at the situation symbolically, we see that the virus emerged from bats. Bats live in dark underground spaces. So symbolically, this situation represents the emergence of the dark side of the self into collective consciousness. This is the kind of event that has plunged all of us into what is called liminality. This word refers to a transitional period of great uncertainty and suffering, but it's also an important stage of all initiation rituals. And the purpose of these kind of rituals is always to lead to a new state of consciousness. So our work is to do what we can to mitigate the situation, which we're trying to do, while also accepting that a transpersonal process is going on, motivated by the self. This requires faith and sacrifice on our part as we try to relate to the demands of the dark side of the self. The suffering produced by the dark side of the self always moves us in a direction that we would otherwise not have taken. But if there really is a guiding background intelligence at work here, we have to learn to live with what is inevitable. Any action we take, and we have to act, but the action we take has to arise from acceptance that the situation is somehow necessary from a larger perspective, so that we don't act from anger and recrimination. Potentially, if we do that, this experience could lead to bonding rather than conflict between people. At our meetings of Psyche and the Sacred, we give people the opportunity to talk about the ways in which we might discover both personal and collective meaning during experiences such as this pandemic. We offer a safe space in which participants might share and deeply understand their own experiences of the transpersonal self, either positive or negative experience, and we support each other in the process. Thank you.